It informs a lot of my decisions in life and business, which I kind of think is all interweaved into one, which is like,
Appreciating dramatically because all affordable homes will be snatched up very quickly, and there will be a lot of demand for those. But for homes that are not affordable or the highly unaffordable, they will continue to see softening.
I mean, that's a reality of it. You kind of just have to shrug it off, right? Like, sometimes you will have a resident that faces an unfortunate situation and they can't pay.
Hello and welcome back to the Masters of Real Estate. I'm really excited about who all of us are going to learn from today. He is the definition of a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, a real estate geek, and obsessive about personal finance. Today we have Andrew Luong. Andrew, how's it going, buddy?
What's up, Nick? Good. Good. It's been a long week, series of months, but excited to be here with you.
Indeed. 2024 has been quite taxing, but still a lot of fun, and really excited to have you here. Seems like you're also based in the Bay Area, right?
Yeah. I am talking to you from Doorvest HQ on Second and Market in San Francisco. I live like 10 minutes down the street, and for sure next time we should hang out in person and do this live too.
10,000%. Yeah, I'm pretty close to you. I'm north of you. I'm in Marin County, and my HQ is my home right now, which my wife has been pushing me to get an office. So we'll figure something out. But yeah, really excited to learn from you today, but not just from the perspective of real estate, prop tech, and investing in real estate, but also your journey in real estate as an entrepreneur as well. But before we get into all that, I want to hear your introduction from your own words. So when someone asks you to introduce yourself these days, what do you say?
Interesting one. There's this funny line where our team teases me about it all the time, where I'm coined as I'm Andrew. I am just a dude. I'm just this guy. And so that's one.
Andrew, like, just a dude. I like it.
This. The other one is my girlfriend to me about this all the time. But oftentimes when we meet people socially and they're like, "Oh, Andrew, what do you do?" I say, "I work in real estate tech instead of I do X, Y, and Z." So I think that's probably what is commonly my introduction. But of course, my day job, CEO and co-founder of Doorvest, a platform that makes it easy for people to invest in real estate entirely online from the comfort of their couch.
Fascinating. Yeah. So you're just a dude who's doing real estate technology for everyone else out there. But for real estate geeks or for anybody interested in real estate, Andrew is the CEO of this company, Doorvest, that can help you invest in real estate. Before we get into all that and your background, people really want to understand what you're like, Andrew. So what spirit, animal, or bird would you say best describes you and your operating philosophy in life?
I think I'll have to go with a dog, not only because I was born in the year of the dog, but there's something about a dog that I think is just so amazing. I think there's sort of me on most days, which is like very earnest. I think I'm relatively loyal and like just hardworking and good to be around. That's most days. On my bad days, and I learned this from my therapist, but it's Andrew the Bulldog, where bad days, like maybe I've had a long series of weeks, maybe I had to stop, maybe I just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, just by going at things and like every time someone sort of disagrees or argues with me, my instinct is that to push it through and just go after it. Most days I'm like a good golden retriever dog.
Good golden retriever. Yeah, golden retriever on most days. And I agree on bad days. Even I have this tough side that comes out and my team immediately pushes back saying, "Nick, just chill, just relax." I can totally empathize. But some days, you just are against your back's against the wall and you have it clock hour on your mind and you have to get things done very thoroughly. And it's tough not to be a bulldog those days.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like to that point too, like I do recognize, sometimes I catch myself, right? Like its first instinct is like, let's say we're saying we're working on this project, and you're like, no, we can't do it because of that timeline, or we're too busy, and blah blah blah. If I constantly hear in my mind say, oh, well, this person, you're getting in my way. Come on, like just give it to me and let me push through. And then I see that happen a couple of times. I'm like, all right, Andrew, you're not in the best state. I think you should take a deep breath and like just slow down a little bit. But yeah, less frequent than in general, just less frequent is good.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And I totally empathize with that. Now, if you had to also summarize yourself in a different way, using a number, you obviously have had quite a journey so far, and I want to get into that. What metric or number do you feel summarizes all of that for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say Doorvest is my life, and I think we measure ourselves based on the assets under management that we have, and even despite of where the market has been, we continue to grow that amount, and we're at a bit over 100 million in assets under management today. To me, that signifies the fact that obviously everyday humans are able to oftentimes buy their first investment home, and then subsequently begin to build out their investment home portfolio.
Wow. Wow. So 100 million in AUM today. So today you're going to learn from a Silicon Valley tech CEO who has gone from a 0 to 100 million in assets under management. So let's go back to a phase in your life, and not just this AUM number was 0, but all your accomplishments hadn't been achieved yet. Let's go back all the way to the start. When you look back at your past trajectory, what would you say were some of the top inflection points in your journey till today?
Well, first off, I do think there's a lot to be accomplished ahead of us. And
this is just a start.
And also, you mentioned the piece around like going from $0 AUM to over 100. Man, I remember the first 2 homes that were transacted on our platform were actually my personal homes too. Viscerally remember our first, I don't know, 200K in AUM, and then our first 100K in AUM. Long journey, but also to what we just talked about, a long road ahead. I've always equated my journey to almost like a Roomba. I don't know if you have that.
I have a Roomba. Yeah.
The Roomba's goal is to clean your house, right? You turn it on, it goes straight, and then it bumps into a wall, and it turns the other way, and then bumps into a wall, or it like hits your shoe, and then it turns the other way. And then hours later, your house and it has accomplished what it set out to accomplish. And so I think the first major inflection point for me was like, to one degree, I was very unsuccessful I went to college. I was trying to study chemistry. I was aspiring to be a doctor. It was sort of this like very methodical path where you go to school for X years, you become a doctor, you make good income, and then you have maybe one day you retire. Fortunately or unfortunately, I was so bad at school that there was no way for me to carry on. Like I was flunking out of classes left and right, and I vividly remember. Vividly remember doing an all-nighter with some of my friends, and we all studied together, right? We were studying for a biology test or something. And then the next day, we sleep for a couple hours. We all go to class together. We slept in the library, all go to class together. And they all got A's and B's, and I got like an F. I'm like, what the hell is going on? I did the exact same thing as what they were doing. So anyways, that led me into startups, because I couldn't be a doctor. No one would really hire me. And somehow I landed a startup job.
Wow. That's such an inflection point. I couldn't appreciate more. Like, seems like, a lot of founders are neurodiverse, and you clearly exhibit some traits of that as well. And where, you're not really good at one thing, but you're exceptionally good at other things. And founders like us spend our life trying to prove everyone else that, you know what, I'm good enough. In some cases, I'm even better than you. I just couldn't prove it.
That's right. In my life, when I can. Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know if you experienced this growing up, but even before college, I remember always thinking in my mind, I was like, I don't think I'm dumb. I really don't think I'm dumb, but clearly I'm not doing well in these classes for some reason. And, sometimes you find teachers that sort of felt a nugget of there was something
Mm.
and you gravitate towards those folks. But the vast majority of folks probably just wrote me off as just like this kid that's just going to be mediocre and never remembered me ever again. By the way, I don't blame them at all, but that was certainly how I felt internally growing up. Right or wrong, that was how I felt. But I'm curious, did you like how did you feel growing up?
Yeah, I felt the same way, from first till like 10th grade standardized tests. I used to get exactly plus or minus 1 percentile on the 50th percentile range. And the reason I knew that is because there were 100 kids in a class and we were stack ranked. So the first 50 kids were in class A and the second bottom 50 kids were in class B. And 1 year I was in A, and second year I was in B, third year I was in A, fourth year I was in B. So either I was first in class B or last in class A. And but even standardized tests came along, I'm like, I'm not dumb. Like I can, at that stage, not today, but I could multiply even 3-digit numbers by 3-digit numbers in my head, right? I'm like, I have all this neuroplasticity, but like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not able to achieve? And I just literally locked myself down in a room for like 4 months and got like 99.86 percentile on that standardized test. And I was like, yes, I'm not a 50th percentile person, right? Across 10 million kids, I was ranked like 137th across them. And I was like, yeah, I am one of the best, but I just didn't have the ability to sit down and study. And then I was finally diagnosed with really high levels of ADHD in my late adulthood. And that actually was a very revealing perspective for me, saying, yeah, this is probably why I can't sit down and study text. When did you realize, like, what moments made you feel that you were actually like highly productive in the things you wanted to get done at?
You know, uh, looking back, and I saw slivers of it, but it took a while before I myself believed it. And so, if I were to trace back, like for instance, I played competitively growing up. I was really good given I started so late, and I didn't have sort of this. Like my parents weren't one of those parents that tried to get me all these lessons, put me in these tournaments, and try to go to an Ivy League school on a ride, etc. But like I just worked hard and I played 3 hours a day, 7 days a week, etc. And I became really good. And so there was moments like that where, uh, in hindsight, it was like if I apply myself to something and I just keep going down this rabbit hole, I think I could get good. So that's in hindsight, but like I think to your initial question of like when did I realize it I bought my home and my first investment home in 2014 in Sacramento, California. Was 20 at the time, and so I couldn't even buy a drink at the bar. But
Or couldn't rent a car? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And so I just forced it through. Right. I had a decent job. I had some savings. I figured out how to leverage some capital, etc. And I bought that. But that wasn't enough for me to realize that maybe I can succeed or make progress if I applied myself. I had to buy another home and another home. And then at some point, I guess I got comfortable with the fact that I think I'm going to be okay. For the longest time, even my parents, I think were very concerned that maybe I'm just going to be this degenerate for the rest of my life. Candidly, I don't blame them,
Yeah, and Asian parents have unusually high expectations. At least by the
Right.
extent. So I totally empathize.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But so let's talk about your early 20s. So you just graduated. Seems like you just graduated from the University of San Francisco and you started working in this company that was very, very quickly sold to John Scully, the ex-CEO of Apple and the ex-CEO of Pepsi, if my memory serves right. So obviously you were in a very high growth company. You didn't really have time, your nights and weekends. What motivated you to say, okay, I'm going to do all this. I'm going to work in this amazing company. And, before I can buy a drink at a bar or rent a car, I'm going to buy my first investment property.
Yeah. In hindsight, you asked about influence. That was certainly another inflection point. Little did I know it at the two. And so I was time at while I was going to full time as well too, and I was getting paid basically like an early college graduate. And so I was doing call it 8 to 5 ish at Misfit, if not more. Then I would do night classes. During the night classes, I would always have my laptop because I was answering work emails. There's many stories about all of that. Maybe this is why I failed, because it was just. But anyway, like having that job, it gave me sort of confidence in myself. Like I watched myself work side by side with other people that were much older than me and also were done with college as well too. And so that gave me confidence, and it also started to give me savings to get into real estate. I think I didn't realize this at the time, but I think the amount that I was working then. So I was doing full time school. I was doing full time work. And the nights and weekends, I would go drive to Sacramento to look at homes or manage rent.
Wow. And seems like you bought a fixer upper. You were renovating the home you bought as well.
Yeah, the majority of them needed some work. Yeah, needed some work to stabilize. Usually, I tried to do less work than more, but things come up.
And how did you conviction for that property purchase? Like for a 20-year-old listening to this right now, saying they want to be Andrew Long someday, Luong, sorry, someday. What materials or resources or mentors do they use to build the conviction you had?
I'll give it 2 points on that. Like, number one, it's impossible to get to 100% conviction. Anything that's meaningful in life. And if you're looking for evidence to get to 100%, you're not going to do much. And I think there's a big realization there. For me, I vividly remember this in 2014. So right after the bottom, this is a little bit after it was
2012 was bottom up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And so this was a little bit out. But the guy that sold me that home, it was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath in Sacramento, California for $96,000. It was the cheapest 3-bedroom in the entire city at the He bought it for $40,000 in about 2012 or so. So he doubled his money in like 2 years in real estate, virtually unheard of. And so I remember thinking, oh my gosh, real estate doesn't appreciate this much. I think we're at it. Obviously, I was very wrong, but if I let that get to me, I wouldn't have done anything. At some point, I was just like, it's a $100K home. It rents for $900, $1,000 a month. I could cover the mortgage. And, worst case scenario, I don't know, it becomes a $90,000. I buy for $100, it becomes a $90,000 or $80,000 home, and I learn a lesson. And also, if I could just hang on for long enough, it'll probably become 100 again and higher. And so, be okay with like some risk. Like do 70, 80, 90% of the work. Feel confident about it, and then be okay with the risk. And then take small bite-sized pieces that you could always walk back from. If I lost all that money, I wasn't.
Yeah, and in all this, I think basically there are 3 takeaways, right? The first is what you mentioned, which is you will never get 100% conviction on decisions that matter. And people who are looking for that are really looking for a way to feel better about their decision. But the truth is, in order to get something, you have to give something. And in some cases, you have to give your sanity away, right? Where you don't have conviction, but you're still making a decision and going forward. The second thing you mentioned was you have to be okay with absorbing the risk and accepting it and making it a part of you and just pushing through it. And the third thing which you didn't mention, which was underlaid in all of your comments, was, in order to like really get there, you have to push yourself. You have to get through those nights and weekends and the days where you're questioning whether it's the right thing to do or not, just to, start the next day and give it everything all over again. Is that the right perspective?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it informs a lot of my decisions in life and business, which I kind of think is all interweaved into one, which is like, okay, you form a thesis. Definitely spend time, spend energy, do lots of research, get educated on whatever your thesis, whether it be starting a company or whether it be buying an investment home or building it out or whatever it is. Form a thesis. And then from there, trim the, right? Like if your dream, and my dream was to buy a lot of homes so I could go retire on a beach, trim the scope such that you could act quickly, minimize the downside because the scope is smaller. But because you're acting quickly, you're able to generate new data points to be able to build on top of it. And so in my instance, by getting into that first home, I learned how to find a home. I learned how to close out a home. I learned how to finance a home and renovate and get my first paycheck or rental check, etc. And that enabled me to buy my second and buy my third and so on and so forth.
And what is the size of the portfolio you built so far, and how is it like these days? Apart from the 100 million you've helped people invest in real estate, also the 100 million of AUM that you help people build in real estate.
I wish, this is where I'm a little bit guilty because I wish that my portfolio was a little bit bigger. When I was 20, which is that first home, I had this dream of owning 10 homes by the time I was 30. I'm now 30 and I only own 8 homes. Granted, we talked about this earlier. I did the Doorvest platform early days to get the business off the ground, and I've owned over 20 in sort of my existence, but I never got to this 10 homes concurrently. But yeah, I'm at an 8 investment.
So if you're a 20-year-old listening to this right now who wants to get into real estate, or you're a 30-something-year-old listening to right now who has excess cash and wants to invest in real estate, tell me why you shouldn't use Doorvest. It's a no-brainer, right? Working with Doorvest to get started and, get your feet wet while getting amazing resources to help you throughout the journey.
I'd like to think it's a no-brainer, and oftentimes our team will pitch it to a prospective customer, and they're like, "What's the catch?" I mean, certainly, like you could do it yourself. I did it myself too. Takes more energy. It's a little bit more painful. You have to think about it. You have to learn a lot more. You don't really get training wheels, but you'll probably save some money because there's no middleman in this instance, this Doorvest. And so you could certainly do it yourself, but I do think what we have to deliver is an on-ramp. And so you might do an on-ramp with us with some training wheels. And then hopefully if we do a good job, you buy your first. 70% of our customers are first-time homeowners. And then you build out your portfolio with us. 20% have bought a subsequent home. Or we've definitely had people that bought their first with us. It's very easy, seamless. And then they're like, maybe I'll go do it myself. Maybe I'll take on the renovations myself, etc. That's fine too. But at least you get to see, you get to get started, which I think is a lot of the theme of what I believe in.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Like if you're a real estate entrepreneur and maybe you want to do everything yourself, then you're not the perfect customer for Doorvest. But if you want to get started with real estate but don't have all the time in the world to do it, then definitely, this Doorvest can provide you the help you need to conserve time and energy. Let's come back to your past. So seems like, the first company you worked in, worked for a year and a half-ish, or got sold to John's colleague. Second company you worked in for a year and a half, that got sold very quickly. So did you just feel like very early on you had the Midas touch in your career where everything you touched turned into gold?
Well, one minor correction. John Scully was actually one of the founders of Mist too. And so we ended up selling it, and I played a micro role of this, but the company was sold to Fossil later. So John Scully was one of the founders who was also on the board. And so I got to spend time with him. I got to see him around. I'm this 20-year-old degenerate that couldn't get to school. And so on one end, it showed me the surface area of what was. On the other end, to your point about the Midas touch, I had no clue. I didn't know. I had no benchmark on, is it normal that within 4 years of founding, you sell for 260 million? Maybe that's just normal, Obviously, I was very naive. What's up? I do think early on in your career that there's some benchmarking, and you got to understand what's around you in the world, etc.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So it seems like after that you spent a few years in the talent industry, right? At companies like Indeed and Human Interest. So how was the experience in working in the talent world really helped you launch, Doorvest later on?
Yeah, there's a very connection in. I got to layer deeper from. So Indeed was a platform that helped people get a job. It was a job posting platform. Human Interest was a 401k platform. So yes, we did sell into HR, and I personally sold into HR with both of those roles. But the core of the product is a job and saving, both of which were topics that I deeply cared about and obviously still do today. And so, yeah, I think on one end, being at those places, I learned B2B sales and partnership, and so many learnings from human interest then as well too. On the other end, it got me a step closer to people's jobs and their financial security and their savings, etc., which ultimately became Doorvest.
So seems like your work there was also closely related to sales, HR sales especially. So what did you learn about sales there that has helped you succeed as a co-founder CEO?
Yeah, there's the cliche, and Nick, I'm sure you got it too. It's like as a CEO, all you're doing is selling. Maybe you're selling investors, or you're selling your customers, or you're selling your story, etc. And so I do think there's a lot of that was transferable from a sort of a skill set standpoint.
Yeah. And now couldn't agree more. Like most of the CEO's job is just setting, doing sales. It's not all of it, but it's takes up quite a bit of your time. So if you had to summarize sales, what would you say differentiates a good salesperson from an extraordinary salesperson?
Interesting. So I'll have to give you 2 points. I was never the best. In fact, and the reason why is because I think the best salespeople from a pure technical standpoint, they find an objective and they won't stop until that objective is met, and they're very laser focused on it. The issue with me is, for instance, I remember this time back at Human. I was doing partnerships at the time. My job was to sign on new partners, and I was paid commission on it for bringing on new partners. Well, I didn't see a direct correlation between new partners and channel partnership revenue. And so I was like, we shouldn't pay me for this. We should pay me for this, etc. And so I think a really good salesperson would just sign max partnership contracts. Me, on the other end, I was a little bit too business minded and maybe a little bit unfocused, etc. I was like, are we sure I should be focused on this? I think I should do the other thing instead. But yeah, I think if we were to summarize it, I think a really good salesperson, laser focused and very disciplined in achieving that singular objective.
Laser focused and disciplined in achieving that singular objective. So now when we talk about Doorvest, what do you feel that objective is for you?
For us, it is really about getting more homes into the hands of everyday people. And so that's measured in the AUM that we talked about earlier. It's measured in the homes under management. We're pushing 450 homes under management at this point. It's also measured in a secondary is like, I'd love to see more people own more homes with us, because ultimately real estate has done so well for me personally. My portfolio has given me some financial security. I wouldn't say I'm 100% financially secure, but some and a good amount to give me the confidence venture outward and do more ambitious things, etc. And I think there's a model to be able to accomplish that. And I truly believe that our business can support people in accomplishing that.
Agreed. So for a potential investor looking into it right, hearing this right now, can you describe the ideal journey that they go through when they engage with you and Doorvest?
Yeah. You might or might not have seen this in this conversation, but I find myself very philosophical at times. And I think that's sort of part of how we've designed the product too. Like, I think humans need a base layer of financial security to be able to maximize their potential. And I think that's where we at Doorvest do our role in giving people financial security through real estate ownership. I don't think that's the only path to get there. In fact, I'm 100% certain that's not the only path, but that's our flavor of that. For us, typically we love to meet prospective customers, investors when they, similar to me, have a job, have some savings, have begun to dabble with investing. They have a 401k, maybe they've traded some stocks, maybe they've done they sprinkled savings here and there and are getting their feet wet. And sort of real estate is a natural part of that progression, right? I think people have a job, they have some savings, and they start thinking about owning a house. whether it be they own it directly to live in, or whether it be they own it as an investment home. And then from there, we'd love to meet them, learn more about their journey, their ambitions, etc. And then from there, we'll try to find what we think might be a good match for them. So you'll meet us. We'll learn that you're looking for a long-term buy and hold. You don't really want to think about it because you're the CEO and you're very busy as is, and so you just kind of want to set it and forget it. And then maybe wake up one day and you have a lot of equity and the rents are a lot higher. You have, call it, $100K in savings that you're looking to deploy. Then we'll figure out, like, is this one home with is this one home with a higher down, or maybe two lower value homes, but you get a down payment for each of those. And then we'll bring it back to you. And then you'll look through it and you're like, here's what it looks like. Here's the neighborhood. Here's what it rents for, some financials. Like, do I like it? Do I not? And then it's your turn to go through your own self-discovery with sort of on standby. Do you want a really affordable home that might be a little bit older? Maybe the neighborhood's a little bit tougher. I've run into plenty of squatters myself. Sometimes it's a little bit more squatter prone. Maybe you're good with that because you want a lower entry price, or maybe you want something nicer, etc. And then we'll just keep going until we find you something that you give us a thumbs up.
Makes sense. So let's talk about a few customer personas, right? Like, there's one persona which is like, hey, I have job, I have savings, but I'm renting myself. I've never even thought about buying my own home. I always dreamed about buying an investment property, but I don't even know how to get started. So when someone like that comes to you or your team or your platform, and they're like, I've also heard these horror stories about like people not paying rent or squatting in homes and other things. Like, what do you tell them?
I mean, that's a reality of it. You kind of just have to shrug it off, right? Like, sometimes you will have a resident that faces an unfortunate situation and they can't pay. We'll try to work with them to find a soft off ramp. But sometimes they just dig in their heels, and that happens. It doesn't happen often, but it happens. And actually, if you ask anyone that has had that happen, and it freaking sucks as you're going through it. Actually, my first home, I went through it all my own too, but it's awful. And I think it's an awful experience for everyone. If you ask anyone that's gone through that experience and then continue to hold on to that home for 5 or 10 more years, there's not a single person that would say, at least financially, that they regret entering into real estate. And that's my true belief. At the same time, you just have to accept that is the reality, and then you make a decision for yourself. And for some people, I don't know, you're too busy, you have all of these other commitments, you just don't want any, like, 1% of it weighing on your mind. Fine, it's probably not a right fit for you. Well, if you could accept that, and it might happen, and we'll try our best to make sure it doesn't happen, then there might be a fit.
Makes sense. So for a persona like that, does Doorvest also help them find the home and manage the property and collect rent and all of that? Like, where does Doorvest play a role in that persona's journey?
Yeah. So we kind of do it end to end. So we'll start with understanding more about the individual. Then we'll go find the home, make sure that you like it. Then you buy it. We make some money off of that. And then we'll find the resident, manage it, and then hopefully keep close to you such that you'll come back and build out your portfolio.
Makes a lot of sense. And, for somebody listening to this right now that has heard of other real estate investment platforms as well, and they're like, I'm not really sure what the difference between all of them is. What do you tell them is what differentiates Doorvest from 99% of the rest of the market?
Yeah. We're end to end, and also we do all of the hard work. There's a lot of, and by the way, I don't think this is the best way to design a business. It's just very hard, and it's very hard. Like, at the end of the day, we talked about squatters earlier. Squatters are a real thing in single family residential real estate. And so either you offload it, someone has to deal with it. And it's us as a platform or you as the individual. And so if we take this on, have to do this hard work. No one wants to do that work. Yeah, I'd say end to end, we go everything from finding your home, helping you buy your home, managing your home, and hopefully you do more, renovating your home, etc., to we do the hard work. Like we renovate the home, we front the money for you to renovate your home. We find you the resident. If we collect the rents, we deal with the broken toilet. Shit happens, then we'll take care of it as well.
Wow. Wow. Sounds amazing. And then for someone listening to this right now, or maybe it sounds too good, right? So is there a catch? Is there a risk of working with Doorvest?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of risks. There's sort of the real estate risk, right? Like, is this even something that you want? Are you going to be able to stomach some volatility? Maybe there's years where the home price doesn't appreciate as much because we've just hit a rough patch. Maybe, maybe the resident has, as we've talked about earlier, unfortunate situation, and you're left paying your mortgage for a couple months because you're not getting any rent. Maybe. And so there's sort of that element. And then on the other side, I mean, at the end of the day, we're still a startup that's learning a lot. And so there will be times where we are strapped for resources and maybe we weren't able to invest in pockets that we'd like to invest in. Just know that in our heart of hearts, we do want to continue to build a better and better experience.
And that is true. In your heart of hearts, seems like you have built a better and better experience over time. Otherwise, you wouldn't have gone from, just one or two of your own personal homes on the platform to 450 homes and 100 million under management. So, Andrew, as you look at your amazing scale so far, what do you feel has been the aha moment that led you to unlock scale?
Interesting. Let me see if I even agree with the point about aha moments, because I don't really, let me think about it. And I'm not saying you're wrong. It's just that's just hasn't ever honestly been my style. It was more iterative versus sort of this light bulb moment. And so I'll push back on the question in the sense that I think I describe our experience as sort of this iterative experience. So we put something out there and then we learn from it and then we build on top of it and then we learn from that. And then all of a sudden we look back and we gain some scale. I think one of the biggest early inflection points to that was, almost from the day, this was something I'm very grateful for, but almost from the day that we launched the platform, we had a crazy amount of customer demand. People just rolled through the door. Like everyone and their moms was interested easily owning real estate. That sort of came as a shocker to me. I didn't expect it. It also isn't just all. It's not all just positive because you have limited resources. Who is actually going to drive business results for you today so that you can pay your bills and keep the lights on and then grow? And so I'd probably say the big unlock, just getting things out there, and then being able to have all these conversations with all these customers. And then that gave me the confidence. There is something here. So then from there, it went back to what is the lowest hits to bring on the first customer and then the second customer, and then keep going at it for years.
Incredible. And I completely agree with your approach, which is like, it's not like you were, late in the office working with, grabbing some pizza and you were like, wow, I had this eureka moment. It was this constant stream of eureka moments as you constantly iterated and scaled. But what could you feel were some of the biggest learnings in your constant iterative approach that helped you scale to, from 0 to 100 million AUM?
I agree that unfortunately there's no moments where I just said, hey, and then here's how we get 100 million. Maybe one of these days that'll happen, and maybe this is where we go from 100 million. Yeah, I think one of the early was people really viscerally get real estate. I thought when we were building Doorvest, we would have to spend a lot of time educating on why buying and holding real estate was a sound financial decision. But I think everyone just got it. People saw, either folks of my generation saw their parents buy a home from the 1990s, and all of a sudden it's worth a lot of money and way more money than they bought it for. And so I think people understood that real estate appreciates in value heavily over time, and people get the concept of how much a home rents for, what a mortgage is. So that part was a big insight. I think what I've come to really, especially in recent, is just how much the human psyche impacts people's decision making and how open or not open they are to investing today. I'll give you two examples. First is the first piece is like I equate investing similar to like getting a gym membership. Like in the back of your mind, you always know that you want to do it. I don't think, yeah, no one would argue that going to the gym is bad for you. I don't think anyone would argue that owning real estate is. And in fact, to your point, you want to do it. People want to go to the gym. People want to own real estate. But there is a bridge to there is a bridge that you have to cross in order to actually buy the gym membership and then go to the gym. And similar to for our business, there is a bridge for you to cross, actually buying that home and ultimately owning it, etc. And so I think that insight is quite important. And then you compound that with just the human psyche, right? Like you could show all the numbers in the world, but at the end of the day, we are a consumer business. And so if people feel like they're getting squeezed by inflation, by the way, me too, I feel very broke. And also, if people feel like they might lose their jobs or they can't afford to pay their bills or whatever it is, like people are much to invest today, regardless of quote unquote good, the numbers look. And so I think as the market shifted in 2022, there was a lot of me that was resisting it all. And then at some point, you after the market beats you up so many times, you just realize that it's stronger than any individual is.
Wow, fascinating. Yeah. So it seems like a perfect platform. Like, how should someone engage with you and Doorvest as they think about, okay, like Andrew sounds like a guy I want to work with to buy my first real estate?
Yeah, I mean, probably the first stop would be just poke around doorvest.com, hang out, check out some of our content, learn about what we do, and then hopefully you feel compelled, and then you can spend some time with our team, or shoot me. Or take the shortcut and shoot me an email to andrew@doorvest.com. I probably don't have all the answers, but I'll try to answer a couple and find a smarter person.
Yeah. And for someone listening to this, they're like, okay, wow, this is also a company I see myself working at. How would you describe the culture of working at Doorvest to them?
Yeah, it's evolved a lot. I wouldn't say it's evolved, but it's sort of accelerated a lot over time. I think the guiding light for me is, and so we try to breed a culture of very high trust. And so what are the ingredients to developing trust? Well, lots of transparency. Everyone in this company knows everything in our financials, everything, anything I do, like my calendar is wide open. You know exactly what I'm up to on any given time. And you see us as we go through our struggles, but you also see us as we approach successes. And I don't think that's the right fit for everyone. In fact, I think some people just don't want to see or hear it all. It's just too emotionally taxing. But there's a specific type of crazy person that I think wants to work at this place, and it's usually someone that gets the roller coaster that's ahead and signs up for it.
Yeah. And Andrew, what's even the story of naming the company Doorvest in the first place?
Oh yeah, that's a funny one. I thought it was a great name. I came up with the name, and I think Justin was tasked with that. And so, door, it's like every home has its door, and over time you develop. As you develop a portfolio, you own many doors. So there's door, and then vest as an invest. So we kind of just pieced it together. And it was around a time where I feel like it was quite trendy for companies to be two names in one. There was like Open Door, there was like Instacart, etc. The list kind of goes on. And so that was kind of how I thought about it. I think the funniest story to me was there was a guy early on that was like, I think your name is great. And it's very cool that you got the domain doorvest.com. The business doesn't work out. I'll give you $500 for it. And I was like, oh, so $500 is like a decent chunk of money, we're fortunately, it's working out, and I think it's worth more than fun.
Yeah, if you offered $500 for that, you might have to keep waiting for a while, maybe a long time. Oh wow! So Andrew, as you think about your number one goal for 2020, what do you see as the biggest challenges you'll face in scaling your team or operation?
Hmm. You know, on one end, I'm very excited about 2025. It's like a nice round number. I think a lot of us in the real estate space have experienced a lot of pain in the last couple of years, and I think we're seeing the light on the other side. But I'm hesitant to say that because the last time I was really excited about a year, I was excited about 2020, and then we had a global pandemic that hit. So I'm going to try to tame my excitement a little bit. As we go into 2025, and actually with the recent acquisition of Getaway, we finally are at where we've developed a healthy portfolio of homes under management. Again, this is the 100 million that we've talked about. And our vision was always to start with making it operationally feasible for anyone, anywhere to buy and own homes online. I think we've done that. We'll continue to refine it and we'll continue to get better, but we've achieved that. Now, the next component is how do we leverage our scale, platform, our relationships, our experience to begin to deliver a creative financial products for our customers. So for instance, we have all these customers that we know well, we know our investors. We then on the other side, we've helped them get a mortgage. We see how their financial performance is, and we manage their residents and their flow of income. Like, can we help them with some of their down payment on their next home? We can accelerate their ability to expand their portfolio, thereby strengthening the core business, but also delivering a lot of value. That's sort of another one I'm excited about is like, every handful of years your resident moves out, it'll cost you, I don't know, between $3,000 and $5,000 as a turnover. No one freaking wants to pay that because not only are you not generating rent, now you have a fat bill. And so, okay, can Doorvest charge a one-time transaction fee, sort of buy now, pay later, turnover now, later, and then sit in between it to really minimize the volatility for a customer. So these are the things that we're very excited about, I'd say. From like your question, which I kind of, I'm getting back to, which is like challenges is, I think it's typical. There's knowns and there's unknowns. The unknowns are consumer sentiment going to be, where's the rest of the economy going to be? I am humble enough to realize that a lot of our fate is outside of the control of our own hands, given whatever the world around us does. And then there's knowns such as the surface area of this business continues to grow and we begin to add more and more people again, are we able to continue to be aligned in sort of the same quest of helping people buy their first home and then helping them continue to build out their portfolio over time?
Makes sense. And I think what you also mentioned in your comments is the biggest problem you anticipate seeing in scaling up platform is getting more money in the hands of home buyers, which down payment seems to be the bigger bottleneck than anything else. Because once they buy the home, it seems that like, the good investment should positively cash flow and they can just go from there and roll from there. And the second problem seems to be around turnovers and making it as efficient as possible. I completely agree. Now, Andrew, for somebody, who's obsessed with real estate data and economics, in the last 3 decades before 2020, home prices grew by about 45% per decade, right? About 4 to 5% a year. But in the first 4 years of this decade, home prices have already grown by 45%. How do you feel about, the housing market over the next 5 years?
Nick, you go first. I need to hear your answer first.
So my answer personally is that, if we look at the pure economics, housing prices are impacted by supply and demand. And, right now, supply is still about 1.4 million units nationally. It should be in the 3 to 4 million range for a healthy market and 4 to 5 million range for home prices to start, softening up. So we are hyper undersupplied. That being said, demand has crashed through the floor as well, right? Like, you need incomes have to increase a lot more and savings have to increase a lot more for demand to even afford the homes right now. So, I personally believe that for homes that are below conforming loan limits, they will keep appreciating dramatically because all affordable homes will be snatched up very quickly, and there will be a lot of demand for those. But for homes that are not affordable or the highly unaffordable, they will continue to see softening. Now, if you look at regionally, I also believe that the Northeast is poised to grow because of affordability there and relatively low supply. The Sun Belt and the Southeast is also reasonably well, except for Florida, which has a lot of structural issues, and Louisiana obviously as well. I also think that certain markets that are hyper oversupplied or coming to become hyper oversupplied themselves just because of the nature of easy development, like the Austins, the Dallases, the Phoenixes, the Boise's, the Atlantas of the world. Yeah, we are undersupplied nationally, but some areas are getting oversupplied locally. They will see softening, but overall, home prices should keep growing at a slow rate. Especially, they'll grow faster if it's affordable. They'll grow much slower or even fall.
What you said would be my answer. I think you thought about it a little bit more than me. But yeah, I mean, look, definitely drives. I mean, basically pricing everywhere, certainly in real estate. I think the second layer that I've come to really appreciate is also like affordability, in particular. And affordability is a function of the home's value, right? Like, is this home appreciating? And if it appreciates too quickly and or wages can't keep up, then it's going to be less affordable. That's certainly a component. But a major component is the interest rates that the end consumer is paying for it. It's crazy. I think about it so much. Someone that bought a home in 2020, 2021 or so, if they today, maybe not today, but roll back 6 months or so, if they bought that same home, their payment is roughly double, depending on their specifics. And so, like, literally half the home that you could afford, which means obviously everything that we've seen of it, right? Those people that have locked in with these low rates, zero incentive to sell. So there's a lack of supply. That constrained, right? The supply was already relative to housing market needs. And then on the other side, no one can pay. Right? Like, imagine having to earn double to own the same home from before. No one's wages are doubling. In fact, for a certain band of folks, the wages are roughly compressing too. And so my opinion is that real estate will do the real estate thing. It'll continue to appreciate at some low single digit figure over the next decade. I do think the last handful of years we've seen, up until the rates shot up, but the pocket, but before that, I do think is an anomaly. I think a lot of it was policy driven. There was a lot of money printing that was out there, and I think that spiked everything, including obviously home values. And so I think that is the exception. And I do think we're going to pull back. Again, this is like politically driven, so we'll see what the folks in office end up doing. But I do think the broad-based sense of people don't want as much money continuing or as nice as it was while you were going through it. So I can't imagine appreciation as much broad-based. But yes, housing at the end of the day is a utility. And so I think the affordability and sort of the workforce housing will continue to grow, and demand will continue to be there. And therefore, I do think that the appreciation rate of that segment of housing will continue to outpace broad-based appreciation.
Completely agree, Andrew. I'd love to ask you some rapid fire questions to close this out. What do you feel you know about the real estate transaction industry that might surprise most listeners?
I'd say the 30-year fixed mortgage is a very beautiful fact. It is something that I think us as Americans underappreciate. We all afford these homes because of the 30-year fixed mortgage, and the government plays a very big role in it. At the same time, most 30-year fixed mortgages, because of that, look very similar. So that's probably a big one for me. I'd also say there's a lot of clunky things along the real estate process and the real estate transaction that I think anyone that's gone through the experience has experienced themselves. Sometimes they're that way for a reason, and it might not necessarily be a bad thing.
And like what? What?
I Yeah, I think there's the title where you get these round and mound of pages, and like there's like title plants, and it's like it goes down to like the local municipalities. I think some of that is there. It's a bit outdated, but it's there really to ensure that you have free and clear title. And that's something that all of us, I think, take for granted as well. Is like in other countries, you might buy a home and the person didn't actually own it or something. In the US, I think that's something that just doesn't.
I agree. I think this one might be very easy for you, maybe too easy. But let's say a family office calls you and says they've just had a liquidity event in life and they've invested in a bunch of things and now they want to invest in real estate as an asset class. They have $100 million left over, hypothetically. What would you advise them?
That's all. I like what I do think we would allocate some good percentage of that to real estate equity. So let we get it together. We'll form a thesis. Let's think about cap rates and trade-offs and yields and that sort of thing. And let's think about geos, like the geography, and what sort of diversification do we want in that? To your point, every local market is very different from each other. They look similar at the surface level, and some of them are, but every market is different. And so let's figure out that thesis on some of it, what that means for yield on the homes that we're about to buy. I actually think we would hedge that with some real estate debt. And so do we fund Doorvest debt note? Do we fund other short-term or longer-term debt for other real estate operators? That's how we do.
Makes sense. And what markets are you seeing for real estate equity that have positive cap rates as well as positive projections on appreciation?
Interesting. The last couple of years, you've gone and watched it all too. I think we saw this thing where 2020, 2021, we saw a bunch of very hot markets that were totally run up. Austin is one that comes to mind. Of course, the Phoenixes and a lot of the Florida markets, etc. They got really hot and they were run up. And then those were also the ones that I think saw a big decline as the rates went up really quickly. That's probably similar to your thesis from earlier, which is like the markets, like the top end of the market, the really expensive were the ones that were impacted heavily. And a lot of it had to do with the affordability of the homes. And so those markets have since come down and cooled off a bit. But actually now you're starting to see a resurgence, I think, in some of those markets too. I am still a believer in, so my flavor of real estate investing is sort of set it and forget it. So find a large metro, that has growing population, growing jobs, and then find a home that's in a roughly median. So let's say like a B neighborhood or so. You buy the home, you come up with your down payment, like find something that breaks even or a little bit is positive cash flow with high rates, and then just sit on it until home prices grow, and then hopefully I think you're very happy. And so I still like Houston as a market, even though the insurance rates are quite high.
Usually just Katy or Sugarland.
Exactly. So like, the suburb. Oh, interesting. Have you spent time there or?
I just obsess about real estate all the time. So, but I have spent some time in Sugarland. I haven't been to Katy yet.
Right. I see. So like the outerlying, I'd say the municipalities in Houston, I think are still really interesting. I think the entry point is super fascinating. Let's say like $250K or so, with like a home that rents for $1,700-1,800 a month. I think is attractive. I do think some of the Midwest markets are really interesting too, like the Columbuses and the Cincinnati of the world. Yeah, just like good textbook, good markets, overly inflated. Uh, and I say that to myself too because I like hanging out in Austin. I would love to own an investment home in Austin, etc. But I do from a pure investment standpoint, maybe go plug more money.
Yeah, I agree with Austin. Like Austin downtown, Round Rock, Georgetown, West Austin. It's really hard to make the numbers work. If you want to better Austin now, you might have to take a geographical bet, and that's even tougher, given the state of 35 traffic these days. What's the best financial advice you've ever received, Andrew?
I'd probably say it's time in market versus timing the market. So find assets that you believe in long term, and then just resist any urge to do anything for very long.
It's very hard to resist that urge. I agree 100%.
Yeah, because I think as humans, like we go through a current event and we're like, oh man, maybe this is the one time that it bucks the trend. I think history repeats itself, and that usually doesn't happen. I think to one of the questions from earlier is like, where do we think the real estate market is going? Well, either appreciates at 2% a year or 4% a year. At the end of the day, within those bands, I think a typical real estate investor would be happy. That being said, I mean, if Elon colonizes Mars and there becomes new settlements and there's like a mass decrease in population in the U.S. because people are migrating to Mars, then maybe this is a once in a lifetime thing where like U.S. home prices start to like for a prolonged period of time begin to decline. Fine, but in general, I do believe very much in finding an asset you really believe in. And then just staying in the market and resisting the urge to make a snap.
Yeah, I think one family office said it best to me, which was real estate is for buying, not for selling.
Yeah, I have learned. My biggest investment were not things that I bought, were things that well, I guess it related thing, but like I told you earlier about that first home I bought, the
96K Sacramento.
Yeah, so I ended up buying 4 of them, about the same price, about the same profile, etc. I did great. I roughly doubled the value of the homes, which is more than doubled the my money on the homes. But they were just a little bit too right. Like I would have to confront squatters, and I don't really want to do that. And I would get break-ins and delinquencies. Many management companies wouldn't touch it, etc. And so. I do regret because they're worth a lot more than what I.
Yeah, I agree. Last question, Andrew. You obviously run a full team, and hopefully you'll also run an amazing family someday. If your loved ones agree to be mentored by you, what is the number one skill you would teach them?
I'd say discipline. Discipline is sort of a theme that I've experienced a lot, and obviously it's survivorship bias and and I think it's deeply personal to me, but discipline. So figure out what you want to do, think about it hard, and then make one decision to pursue it. And then once you make that decision, rain or shine, keep doing it. And I think that applies to course investing, right? Like the moment you get if you do real estate and if you do it enough, one of these days you will get a delinquent resident or a big turnover bill, etc. Have the discipline and the fortitude to keep going and believe in the long term. I think it applies to everything else in life. If you want to build a company, many days it's going to suck. I've had so many days that it sucks. I think we're still here and we're on sort of this next inflection point because we just stayed at it.
Couldn't agree more. Be disciplined, make one decision and stick to it. It applies to investing, it applies to life, it applies to running a startup, applies to everything. That was Andrew Luong. He's a golden retriever, one of the year of the dog, very earnest, loyal, hardworking, great to be around. If you find him on a bad day, he might be a bulldog, but chances are getting lower by every day. He is obsessed with helping you build wealth from real estate. If you're thinking of buying a property or already bought properties but want to, scale your time and resources faster in buying more, reach out to him. and his team. Play around with doorvest.com. If you want to shortcut the whole process, send him a very angry email on andrew@doorvest.com. I'll add details in the bio. This is Nick Shah. If you ever want to talk about real estate, shoot me a note on CEO at Home LLC. Thanks, everyone.